The twilight of Jacob's life. In the land of Egypt, when the long shadows of evening stretched across the tents of Israel, Jacob felt the weight of his years resting heavily upon him. His eyes had grown dim, his strength had faded, and he knew that the time of farewell was near. Around him lay the quiet of old age, broken only by the distant sounds of life continuing beyond his dwelling. Though his body weakened, his spirit remained awake, carrying memories of promises whispered to him by God across deserts, rivers, and long years of wandering. Word reached Joseph, the powerful ruler of Egypt and Jacob's beloved son, that his father was ill. Joseph rose at once and went to him, bringing his 2 sons, Manasseh the firstborn and Ephraim the younger. These boys, born in a foreign land, carried within them both the blood of Israel and the future of a great people yet to come. A father gathers his strength. When Jacob heard that Joseph had come, he summoned the last of his strength and sat upright on his bed. In that moment, the frail old man seemed to grow taller, as if the memory of God's promises lifted him beyond his weakness. He reminded Joseph of the day when God had appeared to him in the land of Canaan, blessing him and promising that his family would become a great multitude of nations, and that the land would belong to his descendants forever. Jacob then spoke of Joseph's 2 sons with deliberate care. He declared that Ephraim and Manasseh would be counted as his own sons, equal to Reuben and Simeon. In this way, the children born in Egypt were drawn fully into the heart of Israel's inheritance. The future shifted quietly in that room, as generations yet unborn were given their place among the tribes. The near-blind patriarch and the waiting sons. Jacob's eyes could no longer see clearly. The world before him was a blur of shadows and light, but his inner vision was sharp. Joseph brought the boys closer. Jacob reached out with trembling hands and drew them near, kissing them and embracing them. He marveled that he had lived not only to see Joseph again, whom he had once believed dead, but also to see Joseph's children, a gift beyond his hopes. Joseph arranged his sons carefully. Manasseh, the firstborn, he placed at Jacob's right hand, the position of greater blessing. Ephraim, the younger, stood at Jacob's left. Everything was prepared according to custom, order, and expectation. The crossing of hands. As Jacob lifted his hands to bless the boys, something unexpected happened. Guided not by sight but by insight, Jacob crossed his hands. His right hand came to rest upon Ephraim's head, and his left upon Manasseh's. The movement was slow but intentional, like a river changing its course. Jacob spoke a blessing that reached back through generations. He called upon the God who had guided him all his life, the God who had been his shepherd from youth to old age, the angel who had redeemed him from all harm. He asked that this God bless the boys, that they would carry his name and the name of his fathers, Abraham and Isaac, and that they would grow into a great multitude upon the earth. Joseph's protest and Jacob's certainty. Joseph noticed the crossed hands and was troubled. He gently tried to correct his father, explaining that Manasseh was the firstborn and should receive the greater blessing. To Joseph, this seemed a simple mistake made by fading eyes. But Jacob refused to change his hands. With calm certainty, he told Joseph that he knew exactly what he was doing. Manasseh would indeed become great, but Ephraim would become greater still. From him would come a multitude of nations. In that quiet act of defiance against tradition, Jacob revealed a deep truth: God's ways do not always follow human order or expectation. Thus, Jacob set a pattern for Israel, a blessing that would be spoken for generations, placing Ephraim before Manasseh. A final promise of home. As the blessing ended, Jacob turned once more to Joseph. He spoke of his approaching death, but also of hope. God, he said, would be with Joseph and would bring his descendants back to the land of their fathers. As a final gift, Jacob gave Joseph a portion of land greater than that of his brothers, land he described as taken from the Amorites by sword and bow. Whether remembered or symbolic, This gift marked Joseph as uniquely favored, not only in Egypt but in the story of Israel itself. The room grew quiet again. The blessing had been spoken, the future shaped by words and gestures, and the old patriarch rested, having passed on what mattered most. Explanation and lessons. Genesis chapter 48 is not a story of the world's creation, but it is a story of shaping the future, which can feel just as powerful and mysterious. In this chapter, the destiny of tribes is decided through a frail old man's blessing. The crossed hands of Jacob show that God's purposes often overturn human expectations. The younger is raised above the older, not by accident, but by divine insight. The chapter teaches that blessing is not merely tradition or ritual, but a spiritual act that carries vision, faith, and trust in God's guidance. It shows the importance of remembering God's faithfulness across a lifetime and passing that memory on to the next generation. Jacob looks back over his life and sees not chaos, but shepherding, protection, and redemption. From this story, one can learn humility before God's plans, respect for the wisdom that comes with experience, and hope that the future rests not in human strength, but in divine faithfulness. Even in weakness and near darkness, a life rooted in trust can still shape history.